Now, welcome to the Dynasty Dummies podcast. I am Zach Reed, and I am joined again for the Dynasty Dummies 2022 Rookie Hootenanny by JMic at JMic Check and Matt Foreman at Fat Mormon. We are doing double duty today. It is the quarterback class and the tight ends of this 2022 rookie class. We appreciate you joining us. This has been the Dynasty Dummies. Peace. No, wait, it's not that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad. Fellas, how are you tonight?
It's a pretty sweet summation of what we're looking at this evening. Just when you look at last year's class and how excited we were for a couple of the tight ends and several of the quarterbacks. We had a lot of star power, a lot of shining bright lights that we all thought, hey, you know what? QB and tight end one potential with these guys. And this year, we gonna see. We gonna see. Foreman, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, not great, Bob. Not great. Yeah, it's fine. It's just there's a lot of doubles here, maybe a couple singles.
There you have it. There you have it. Well, as Zach mentioned previously, we're talking quarterbacks on the evening. We've got 4 we want to touch on. We've got 5 tight ends that we're going to discuss. But before we get into this palate cleanser, because we've done all the skill positions, and I guess we'll call this a palate cleanser of sorts today. Tell me something good, guys. What's been on your brain? What's been on your mind? What's something that's got your brain stimulated past just these prospects?
So I got 2 things. JMic. This has been a banner day. Caleb, my son, who is 8 and autistic, went on a school trip today to a ski mountain and skied for the first time. And about 10 o'clock today, I got a picture from my wife, who was chaperoning, of Caleb on bright green skis, ready to go down the hill with the biggest smile I have ever seen. And he successfully traversed the bunny slope, not once, not twice, but 3 times today, and was excited to tell me about it when he got home. So that was fantastic. And the other thing is not family related, but town family related. So the town I grew up in, and we were just talking about this pre-show, but my friend, my former student, Chef Adam Libby on TikTok just went over 1 million followers, 1.3 million now, I think, and climbing. And if you haven't seen his stuff, he is absolutely fantastic. He cooks a little of everything. He's got an outside smoker pizza oven. I just took in. He made a pig candy the other day, some candied bacon, and it looked absolutely amazing. But if you need something to brighten your life, Adam has been doing that for me since 2002. I had him in school, and every day he would come in and give me the big smile and, hey, Mr. Reed, how is it going today? Give me the hug. And now he's doing that for 1.5 million people, and it's just beautiful to see. So those are my 2 things, JMic. I'm having a good one.
I want to corroborate Zach's story, and Adam also made a pig candy breakfast pizza as well too. It looked phenomenal, just phenomenal. Just tying everything together there with the bacon on the smoker, and then he was popping the breakfast pizza in the Ono there. It was just literal chef's kiss. We don't have a lot going on here. The 70s are back in Charleston, so enjoying the nice weather down here. Took the boy up to the zoo in Columbia on Saturday. Had a nice little family outing. Got him out of the stroller. He doesn't walk. The kid doesn't walk anymore. He just sprints. So, yeah, it's
it
just
stop.
No, and he's so fast. Like your legs are like this, are 18 inches long. Like, how are you this fast? So, yeah, we had a good weekend. We didn't talk about Sunday yet, and I'll just let that today. We'll just leave it at that.
That's cold.
Who day? The Rams apparently are our day. unfortunately. So
did you real quick, JMic? Did you think the officiating at the end was a bit suspect in the fact that they let them play the entire game and then all of a sudden, I didn't see anything that was overly egregious in that play calling there. I think the pass interference in the back of the end zone might have been, but I think it was still first down when that happened. So obviously it would have went from first and goal at the 1 to first and goal at the 11. So I didn't think everything was that. And if we're talking about egregious penalties, that was clearly offensive pass interference on T. I hope you're listening, Russ.
Get your face out of T's hands. I mean, that's all there is to say.
That's what that is. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if you are trusting, if you are crazy enough, if you are legitimately
Kyle,
sure, if you're trusting anyone by the name of Eli Apple to cover one of the game's best wide receivers at any point and expect success, you have failed the test before you have even picked up the pencil. So there's that. And at the end, obviously, man, we really got to get into this. Zach Taylor did the offense very few favors throughout the game, allowing the offensive line to get taken advantage of late, all sorts of things. Oh,
and Mixon not. Why was P. Ryan on the field and Mixon not on the field?
Foreman.
I mean, how did Kyle LeBrecq incept Zach Taylor? I don't know how that happened, but here we are.
Here we are. Here we are. Let's talk about these quarterbacks. Let's get into it. Again, for those that may be new to the show, welcome. Thank you for coming and checking us out. We'll be touching through 4 quarterbacks today, 5 tight ends. And gentlemen, just before we dive in too deep, obviously we've talked a little bit about what we're looking for in the running backs. We've talked a little bit about what we're looking for amongst wide receivers. Obviously, quarterback positions can be a little bit tricky in that there's a lot of nuance. And I know that there's not a lot of nuance that people want to listen to in the fantasy space nowadays. However, nuance is key, specifically at the quarterback position. So, Foreman, just real quick to get started, man, what are just some of the things that you look forward to, or even any aspects that says, you know what, this guy shows me some potential that makes me feel comfortable about being excited for him in the fantasy space at the next level?
I think in 2022 you have to have some sort of mobility. If you're not mobile in today's NFL, if you're not having some sort of threat to possibly being able to run the ball, I'm not saying you need to be Kyler Murray, but you got to be able to get 3 to 4 yards if it's there. I think the Peyton Mannings of the NFL are unfortunately probably more of a bygone era. That we don't have a lot of statues back there anymore. I want to see a quarterback who's able to go off his first read. I want to see players who are able to progress through their different reads. I'm watching their footwork a little bit in the fact that I want to make sure they're not consistently throwing off their back foot. Just good decision making, try not to force anything. Other than that, I'm kind of looking for. I'm going to take a lot of advice from what the quote unquote experts are saying. With the NFL draft prognosticators are saying, but obviously we're going to look at some things that we're seeing as well too, and kind of use those in conjunction to what the experts are saying, and kind of use those in tandem. But I think this is the position that I lean on the most of the experts with is the quarterback position.
Zach, anything to add there? And you might as well parlay that into tight end as well while you're at it.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt, spot on. It's the hardest position to evaluate because I think the most important piece of quarterback is actually processing. And you talked about going through reads and that sort of thing. It's also processing pre-snap, figuring out what the defense is giving you for a look, being able to assess whether or not you're being blitzed and you need to check into something quick. Whether you've got a loaded front, whether you've got a light front, being able to check into runs and that sort of thing. Which again, like I've never been a quarterback. I couldn't begin to tell you or process If you were to come up to me and say strong right, slot Z right, spider 2 wide, banana Z, like I got no shot. Like that's not me. But I can tell when a quarterback is processing, and the other things that guys see where he's inaccurate, he's throwing the ball high, or he's inaccurate left and right. That's just baseball. That's just rotational athletes. That's the same thing in hitting a baseball, throwing a ball as a quarterback. High and low is your front shoulder, front elbow, getting that in tight and close to your body. If you're flying open, everything is going to be high. If you're closing too quickly, everything's going to be low. Left and right is where your head's at. And so those things I can see. And if I can see them, they can be cleaned up by an NFL coach, an NFL team that is willing to take one of these guys in the first round. So those things I'm not as worried about. It's processing. We're going to talk about Malik Willis. It's athleticism. It's being able to run. It's being able to move the pocket, being able to use your legs as a weapon now, because so much of the game in the NFL now is not necessarily Lamar Jackson level running, because that's his primary weapon, but the Joe Burrow level running, the Aaron Rodgers level running, the guys who Trevor Lawrence, the guys who can move the pocket and take what's given, Dak Prescott, that type of runner where you're actually adding more value as a fantasy player with that, 30, 40, 50 yards a game than you think. And so those are things that I'm looking at with quarterbacks. And as far as tight end, you're basically assessing a wide receiver, which we've talked about, and an offensive lineman, which we haven't talked about, but it's blocking leverage and that sort of thing. And honestly, the biggest indicator of a tight end being good comes at the combine. It's athleticism. And that's the only position that I will say that. The only position where I'm going to be really interested in the combine is the tight end. And so that's where I'm at there. So it's using my, leaning on being a baseball player a little bit, and guys who know quarterbacks to evaluate quarterbacks, and using the pieces that we have to evaluate tight ends to do that. So
one of the things I'll add to what you all were talking about in Foreman, I definitely want to hear if you have anything else you want to add to tight ends. But at both of these positions, and one of the really unique things that's becoming a trend in fantasy is the separation of the haves and the folks who really give you the ceiling that can go to places unknown, the far great beyond, the top 12, the top 6. Can you get me in that realm of difference maker? And I think we're all chasing those things, whether it be in players like TJ Hawkinson, whether it be players like Joe Burrow, or whatever the case may be at the positions. We want players who aren't just going to come in and be fine. We want players that are going to come in and potentially, even if they need some sprinkling and development, give you difference-making ability at the positions. And so I think one of the things that I am trying to hone in on, or at least a little bit more from last year versus this year. Last year, we had a star-studded quarterback class. We had some guys at the top to get excited about at tight end. And now I want to also keep in mind, if a player's not giving me ceiling that says difference maker, how do I still view them, recognizing that others may still value these players highly or value these players to a certain degree? So even if you don't hear all the enthusiasm in the world from us in when we're talking about these guys this evening, what's so important to remember is that they're still quarterbacks, they're still tight ends, there are still going to be people who are very excited about these players. And it's our job to be able to take what we see, decide whether or not they're going to be difference maker type players. And if they are, how do we make that work in our fantasy lineups? And if we don't believe in that being the case, then what does it look like for us to be able to extract the value that maybe the NFL puts on them come draft time, or what other podcasts and content producers are doing from a hype machine standpoint? Foreman, anything else you want to add regarding tight ends, or putting a bow there on the quarterback talk?
I think with the tight ends, I think along with the athleticism, as I'm looking for some versatility there. I don't want to see a guy who's just inline blocking the whole time, but at the same time, I don't want to see someone who is just flanked out wide on every possession and they're not inline blocking, because that's just telling me that they're going to be not. If I'm looking for a true difference maker tight end, which is what you're referring to there, I want to see who's going to be there on the field for all three downs, who's going to play the majority of the snaps for their team and can be their team's tight end one. I think you said that beautifully there, JMic, about with talking about being difference makers. When I think of that, I think of there's a scene in Moneyball when there's a scout or a GM or somebody who's talking to a young Billy Bean, and they say a lot of times we find a lot of these kids and they have one or two, maybe even three tools, but they said Billy had 5 tools. He can run, he can hit for average, he can run, he can hit for average, he can hit for power, he can field, and there's another one there as well too. But I think with what you're saying is absolutely correct. There not a lot of times we're going to find those 5 tool players. We have to find, if we can find a guy who has 1 or 2, and hopefully that the NFL can coach up maybe a 3rd or 4th. And in some cases, you can get that 5th in those rare examples. But if you can find those players who, so they're doing a lot of they're doing some of the basic things right, and some of the things they can just be tweaked with. I think that's where you find a lot of the values with any prospect position, but especially with these 2 positions in particular, where I think these are the 2 most nuanced positions in terms of fantasy relevant draft positions.
Outstanding stuff, gentlemen. I love how we've already got the wheels churning, well oiled. No squeaks in this machine going forward. So let's talk through these quarterbacks, starting with quarterback Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. And again, as a reminder, we're leveraging the list of players, the rankings that come from the good folks over at Dynasty League Football, DLF. And we're going off of their rankings to be able to talk through the order for the evening. And then, of course, at the end of the night, we'll talk through our rankings for each position group. But Matt Corral, junior out of Ole Miss, last couple of years, he's been putting up some really just crazy production, partnered with Lane Kiffin down there in Oxford. And in this last season, his junior season, his best season yet, we saw 3,343 yards in terms of production. Now, while the touchdowns came down from a year ago, going from 29 to 20, we did see the interceptions also come way down, 14 as a sophomore to 5 as a junior. And that's on a lot more attempts this last year as well. So we saw the mistakes come down for Corral, finished 7th in the Heisman voting, 6'1", 205 is what they have him listed at. Corral comes out of nowhere, gives you production, gives you all sorts of goodness, gets on the national radar and becomes a guy that people are thinking is QB1 in this class. Zach Reed, what say you?
I say Ole Miss has been churning out some high-level wide receivers for the past 5 years, and it stands to reason that somebody has to be throwing them the ball. Enter Matt Corral and his 67% career completion percentage. Corral is very good at identifying whether or not a slant route is open early and delivering the ball quickly and accurately if it is. He has very good velocity on short and intermediate throws, sneaking well-placed balls past decent coverage. Corral is also another mobile quarterback, and although it's not his primary weapon, Corral's ability to run gives him another avenue to score fantasy points. He uses subtle jukes and angles to pick up extra yardage in his runs, and this extra facet of his game shines especially in the red zone. Corral prefers to take off running rather than force a bad throw, which I like. Sometimes I'd like to see him throw the ball out of bounds.
Q Bone Crushers. I ain't never scared. What? I ain't never scared. That's Corral in a nutshell. Let's keep it going here, Foreman. Tell us some things regarding Matt Corral that you like.
Yeah, Corral can, obviously, as Zach said, he can win with his legs. He has a nice compact motion that I saw. He real quick release, like you would see almost like with a catcher when they're trying to throw a runner out at second or third. He does a nice job changing his arm slot as well too. If he's kind of get off balance, like I'm gonna say Mahomes, but obviously that's when you think about arm slot changes, you're thinking about Patrick Mahomes. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying, just using them in the same sentence together. We'll leave it at that. I think he does a nice job, even with his mobility. I think he does a nice job, even when he is rolling out, he's still looking to pass the ball first rather than run. And he's able to make some pass rushers miss with that mobility to be able to buy himself a couple extra seconds to find an open receiver.
Zach, as you mentioned, the wide receivers out of Ole Miss, it's been a nice group over the last several years. The offensive line out of Ole Miss, I'm there with you, Foreman. I'm 100% there with you, man. He's been able to buy himself time. He's been able to keep plays alive, and he's got that spirit in him. And like I said, the I ain't never scared spirit in him. He'll keep plays going longer, even sometimes than they probably should. He is not afraid of any throw on the field, even when it's not a great one. But I do love to see the maturation from him from the junior season from the sophomore season to the junior season, seeing him become someone who's not taking as many risks, which helped elevate the team to be able to actually be more productive with their drives, be more productive as an offense, be more productive for a defense that wasn't very good and hasn't been very good for a while there in Oxford. So when we're looking at Matt Corral, and you guys mentioned it early, his mobility, his ability to be mobile when necessary is something that you can see at the next level translating, being something that it's 3rd and 6. I've got nothing. I can get you 9 yards. It's 3rd and whatever. He's got that ability in him. And so I really enjoy the fact that he's not scared. He shows poise. He's shown growth. He's shown coachability, even with Lane Kiffin and Lane Kiffin's not going to be scared making any kind of play calls, pushing the ball down the field either. Kind of Arians-esque in that, hey, we're gonna take shots. I really like what I've seen out of Corral, and I'm excited about his prospects at the next level. All of those things said, as fun as he may be to watch at times, as maddening as he may be to watch at times, we know that Corral's got his own warts in his game. Foreman, we'll start with you, man. Some of the things from Corral that you're not super thrilled about.
I think the biggest thing that he did that worries me about him is I felt that he was staring down his first reads consistently. And I think that is, I'm seeing Zach nodding his head vigorously. Is that something I'm very concerned with him? He's just staring, like if you're a safety, you're just going to be reading. You're just going to let Corral's eyes tell you exactly where he's throwing the ball, and you're going to be right 9 times out of 10. The great thing is with that he's able to use that on some pump fakes because everyone thinks he's throwing it there, and then he throws it downfield because literally that's what he does 99% of the time. His accuracy felt inconsistent with me, which I thought was from his footwork. He's not getting a stable base. He's on the move a little bit too much when he's trying to throw the ball. I thought he was a bit fumble prone as well too. He was losing the ball a couple times in some games. They may not have gone for actual lost fumbles, but he was fumbling the ball a bit too much for me. I think the biggest thing with him is just staring down that first read. I'm not really sure how he's able to process what the defense is going to give to him because he just wasn't doing it. And I know we've said this a million times. We'll say it a million times more. I don't know if he if he can't do it or he wasn't asked to do it. But I think getting him into more of a West Coast offense, it would be something that I would want to see with him. But I was talking with someone the other day, and I was asking, does the team run a West Coast offense anymore? And it's not really. You're not seeing a whole lot of you're not seeing the Niners offenses from the 80s anymore. It's kind of gone out of vogue in today's NFL. So just kind of maybe not the ceiling I want with Corral, or maybe the floor is just really low. I'm not sure which one, maybe both.
Understood. Zach, keep it going. Things we like to see better out of Corral.
Sometimes watching a quarterback receiver combination is like watching a game of catch. And this is especially true when Corral is involved. His number one target has seen on average 47 more receptions than the wide receiver 2 over Corral's tenure at Ole Miss. Unfortunately, this points to Corral's limited experience going through progressions, whether by offensive design or by his own choice. And I think Corral's arm talent seems to be on a sliding scale. Like inside of 20 yards, he consistently puts the ball on a rope. Deeper throws, that rope seems to be attached to a helium balloon. You got a little bit of a loft there. Corral also struggles in the pocket, often getting caught between wanting to push the pocket forward and the urge to completely bail. And so when he gets caught in the middle, he is in some trouble. Corral's accuracy and his ability to pick up sneaky yardage with his legs will make him enticing in the first round of rookie drafts. If he gets first round NFL draft capital, which you expect he will, you probably have to take him there, but I don't think you have to like it.
And I should have also mentioned Matt Corral being one of those players that, as people have continued the conversation of should these guys who are likely heading to the NFL, should they be playing in these bowl games? What's the risk there? Get out there, play for your team. Well, he wanted to do that. He was excited about that, and unfortunately, he got hurt in that bowl game. I don't know if an actual diagnosis ever came out to the light in terms of what he actually did to his lower leg in that bowl game, but hopefully he's someone that we see at 100% or close to 100% by the time the combine comes, just to be able to hopefully see him throw and maybe test. Because in all likelihood, I'd assume that he is not one that we're going to be seeing run come March, because the combine is almost, golly, time is flying. Speaking of time flying, next quarterback on the list, Malik Willis, DLF's number 2 quarterback as of last week, started his life at Auburn. Was super excited to see him in the SEC. And then finds his way out of Auburn and in love with one Hugh Freeze, who ended up at Liberty. Good old Liberty Flames. Go Flames. And that is where he flourished into what is now a very exciting, and some people say QB1-esque rise. Senior Bowl, he impressed, and now people are super excited to see him play. So in his final season at Liberty, 2,857 yards through the air. And I think what's got most people excited about him is his ability to run the ball. I should have also said 27 touchdowns as a passer, 12 interceptions in this last season. So we saw the TDs go up. We saw the interceptions go up. But when people are talking about you running a hand time sub 4.40, that's something to be very excited about. And we talked about those tools, Foreman, that you mentioned earlier. That's one of those heavy-handed tools that can really be good stuff. So Foreman, I'll give you first dibs here. What do you have in reference to Malik Willis?
The first thing I want to talk about is something he did at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. It is that he broke Josh Allen's record for the hardest throw by like 9 miles an hour with a football. Guy was throwing a football 77 miles an hour, which is incredible. That's just goes to show you the arm strength the guy has, which is one of the tools that we're looking at, obviously. He's a slippery runner. He can run through arm tackles. He's almost like a running back at times out of the backfield. He retains his accuracy on the move. I think he does a great job about throwing to where his wide receiver can get it, where that's good or bad. But he throws the ball. Usually, obviously, there's 12 interceptions. He was throwing it to where his wide receivers wasn't. But I think there's a lot to like about Willis in terms of his mobility and with his raw tools. I think that I'll wait a little bit to go on to the next part, but I think obviously there's a lot to like with Willis. I would have liked to see him play against a little bit more top end talent. I also would love to know what the reason for the move at Auburn was as well too. I can't remember off the top of my head who the quarterback would have been there 3 years ago. Would it have been Bo Nix?
Yeah,
would have been Bo
Kind
Nix.
of that weird spot, Jared Stidham.
Yeah,
right.
And now Bo Nix is at Oregon, so which is interesting because his dad is like a Auburn legend. But I digress there. I would have loved to have seen Willis compete every Saturday in the SEC, but he was obviously able to do well with Liberty the past couple years. I think they almost undefeated last year in the COVID season. So a lot to like about Willis. I'll let Zach take over to see what he has to say.
In 2010, a single Bitcoin token cost 8/10,000ths of a dollar. And if you had invested just that single dollar, you'd be sitting on $50,714,000 now. Malik Willis pre and post Senior Bowl, same energy. It's no secret that Willis is an exceptional runner, posting more than 1,800 rushing yards over the last 2 seasons. Willis is fast, and he has the versatility to be able to run through tacklers or cut past them. He's got a very strong arm, uncorking deep balls with seemingly little effort. These throws, especially when dropped perfectly in between 2 defenders along the sideline, offer tantalizing glimpses into Malik Willis's potential as an NFL quarterback.
The excitement is there. And we talk about this often. Do you have a trait? Do you have something that you can lean on that takes me to an area that I'm excited about? And Zach Foreman, you both mentioned it. The athleticism is something that you place him on an NFL field right now, and he not only fits right in, but he excels with peers who are able to do a lot of what we like to see. And his ability with ball in hand, specifically as a rusher, is something to be very excited about. And I really think, and I try not to mix up what we see on film versus what we hope to see, but what we do see on film is a guy with an incredibly strong arm. We see a guy who's not scared to make any throw on the field. And I think sometimes the deep ball kind of does a weird thing where he's either way off or he kind of lets some things fly a little bit that I think better of it in terms of decision making. However, the excitement is there, the ceiling is there, and there's a lot to be thrilled about with the potential of what he could be. Potential unrealized is a very scary thing to discuss. So, Zach, when we're looking at Malik Willis, potential unrealized, opportunities abound. What do you see in his opportunities?
For a player whose primary weapon is taking off downfield, I think Willis gets caught far too often deciding whether or not to run. Some of this, I think, is knowing that he's supposed to be throwing the ball at least occasionally. That's like part of the prerequisite of being a quarterback. But a part of it is Willis's difficulty focusing simultaneously downfield and also on the traffic that's directly in front of him. I think he gets caught kind of tunnel vision on one or the other. When he does take off, it's a must watch. He's either going to do something spectacular or the pileup at the end of the run is going to be epic. Willis does not slide. As a passer, Willis is inconsistent. Much of this, I think, stems from him failing to keep his weight back and his front shoulder from flying open. This leads to a lot of throws missing high, low, and contributes to his lack of touch on shorter throws. Willis, to me, is a project quarterback, and I know that everyone has been so excited to move him up to QB1. He's a project, but the innate talent that he has both as a runner and that deep ball throwing is absolutely tantalizing. It seems like the NFL is ready to declare him the top quarterback prospect in this class. And if they do, I think we're foolish not to follow suit. Willis's legs alone are enough to make him the most fantasy relevant player in the draft.
There you have it, Foreman. Let's keep it going here. Opportunities regarding Malik Willis's game.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna reiterate what Zach said. It seems like sometimes when he was trying to run the ball, he just didn't know whether to keep running or throw the ball, and that led to him getting tackled for a 3-yard loss innumerate number of times. I think sometimes he also, I don't know what had to do with the competition that he played within or his own hubris, but he seemed to rely on his own athleticism too much. And I thought that may have contributed into some of those things as well too. Willis also has a really weird arm angle. He's a really weird release. It's kind of like he's not coming over the top. He's more at a three-quarter than the traditional. And I don't know. I wasn't seeing a whole lot of balls batted down, but I just felt it was something to monitor as well there too. Obviously, Phillip Rivers had a very weird arm angle and release as well too, and that he played in the NFL for 18 years almost. So I just something to monitor there. But yeah, I would love to see the juxtaposition of having Willis in Pittsburgh after having the statue that was Roethlisberger, from going to a guy who couldn't run to a guy who could only run. I think that's a great spot for him as well too. If I can, just because as much as Mason Rudolph is not good, he can do enough to not. He's going to lose you games as well too.
Don't fix your face.
Yeah,
Mason Rudolph is the answer, because he is not.
He's not the answer. He's not the answer. I think he could be a 6-game bridge quarterback.
Ugh.
It's not optimal. I mean, maybe Dwayne Haskins. I just feel like.
Somebody hit me with Rudolph's helmet, will you please?
Oh yeah. Josh Dobbs, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like that would be a great spot for Willis with some good pass catchers there, and with Najee as well. But I think I'm going to be in the NFL camp here, with seeing the potential that with Willis. I feel like he has the highest ceiling of any of the 4 quarterbacks that we're going to talk about today.
To me, what he is right now is what everybody who hates Jalen Hurts thinks Jalen Hurts is.
Let that marinate for a second. It's funny that you say what you say, Foreman, in reference to arm angle, because I think that it's one thing to be Phillip Rivers, who 6'4", 6'5". He's a pretty tall dude, right? Malik Willis coming in at 6'1", with the funny arm angle, and the indecision is the thing that's probably most maddening to me about how he manages the pocket, how he manages when to run, and what he does when he actually runs. And I will not slide, right? Okay, that's cool and all, but these dudes, the next level are a problem for you if you don't want to do that. So Malik Willis, sky's the limit. Curious to see where you guys have him when we get to the end of the evening. Keeping it moving here. Next up, speaking of Pittsburgh and potential reunions of staying in the city of Pittsburgh there, Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pitt. 6'3", 220-pound, super senior, his second senior season there at Pitt, and finished third in the Heisman voting. We saw some highlight plays from him. We saw him produce was it Jordan Addison? Didn't he end up winning the Biletnikoff there? Pitt, outstanding season with Whipple making the moves there as the OC. In 13 games, we see Kenny Pickett have the year of his life. 4,300 yards passing, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 1 almost slide that he didn't slide that caused an uproar amongst all of football, Twitter, fantasy, and real alike. Listen, the production's there. People have even comped his rise to the rise of Joe Burrow, which, it's not necessarily wrong in terms of the type of rise, because he did come out in his last season. He did put on a show, and he did do so with a wide receiver that people are very excited about in Devy Circle. So with all of that said, Kenny Pickett, he's got to be QB1 material, right, Zach? Right?
Kenny Pickett is a grilled cheese sandwich. There are no frills, there's no truffle oil, and no Konami code. There isn't even a side of tomato bisque. What Pickett does have is very quiet feet in the pocket, dropping straight back and rarely fidgeting when he feels pressure. He goes through progressions well, often hitting a second or third read when his initial target is covered. Pickett can make throws to all levels of the field, even though he doesn't have a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. His deep throws are good enough. Although he's not a threat to run, Pickett does move the pocket well. And when he does, he keeps his eyes downfield, creating some easier throws when the defense breaks down.
All right, Foreman, keep it going. What are you seeing with Pickett?
Yeah, I think he's got enough mobility. He's not. He has the requisite. He meets the threshold there. He can run. Obviously, we saw with that play he did in the bowl game, which actually caused a rule change, I believe, already. And he's got good accuracy when he's rolling out. He does. I think he of all of the 4 quarterbacks we're talking about today, he does the best job about processing the defense. He uses his eyes to control the safety. He also keeps his eyes downfield when he's rolling out, and he throws with anticipation to his receivers as well too. So obviously some good tools there. I think with the grilled cheese, it's probably not Kraft singles. I think you're getting that good you're getting that good aged cheddar at least.
Let me ask you guys this, and I'll be quick. Knowing what we know right now in fantasy, and we'll take one-word answers, who would you prefer in fantasy right now? Kenny Pickett or Mac Jones?
Jones.
Kenny Pickett, Zach Wilson.
Pickett.
It's close for me, but I'll take probably the floor of Pickett.
Okay. And again, 2 players who couldn't be more different, right? Zach Wilson versus Mac Jones. The pomp and circumstance and flash of Zach Wilson and what he could be, and the mobility that he showed in college, and the arm that does a lot of fun things. And then Mac Jones, quiet, steady, does a great job in the pocket, is able to work his reads, able to help make sure the receivers maximize their run after catch. And I think, and I'm not saying, I don't want people to be confused. I'm not saying that I think that they're the same prospect in terms of Pickett and Mac Jones, but a lot of the things that we liked out of Mac Jones, I think are a lot of the same things that we like out of Kenny Pickett. The quiet feet, the anticipatory throws, the ability to work his progressions, and the ability to make sure that his receivers are in position to make plays after the catch. All things that are incredibly exciting. And obviously with the athleticism that he has flashed, it's almost like, hey, if I'm going to get a lot of the things that Mac Jones does well, plus a little bit of rushing, that's something to be excited about. And that's just one of the reasons why I asked you guys about what we knew about those guys right now versus what's going to happen with Kenny Pickett, because we've seen Mac Jones be someone who's pretty good. Like, I don't remember where Mac Jones fell in terms of fantasy quarterback finish in this past season, but the good things that we did see from Mac Jones, I think were things that are sustainable and for things that for him to be able to grow on. And I think that's a similar trajectory that you can hope for with Kenny Pickett, with a dash of the rushing sprinkled on, that perhaps could give him a ceiling that makes him teeter on difference maker. Maybe we'll see. Not sure about that, but I like a lot of what Kenny Pickett does specifically in the pocket. and his ability to make sure that he gets the most out of his receivers around him. But let's keep it going here regarding Kenny Pickett. Foreman, talk to me about some of the things that you saw on film that did not exactly send you over the moon.
So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the 2019 ACC championship game when Kenny Pickett played the entire game and threw for 8 yards.
Wait,
How in the world do
good?
how in the world do you play the whole game and throw 8 yards?
So he is Mac Jones.
Yeah, but there was no wind.
Spider-Man meme. Hey,
There was no wind. There was no wind. It's every time somebody talks about Kenny Pickett, it's the first thing I talk about. I say 8 yards. I mean, yes, I'm a Pitt hater. I have to hate Pitt. It hurts me every day to root for Aaron Donald as much as I do because he went to Pitt. I think that goes to show you about Pickett's upside. Yes, we're going to talk about his hand size. We have to. The double gloves thing really bothers me because I think there's something to say there about his grip strength. I think there's something to say there again with the Senior Bowl as well. There too, it was raining, and the reports coming out of the Senior Bowl were that he was not as accurate as he was during the season with some precipitation falling. So I think that's something to monitor with him as well too. I did see the deep arm strength that a lot of people were seeing. I think there was probably 2 to 3 plays a game where Jordan Addison was literally having to stop and he was getting pass interference calls because the ball was either underthrown. Pickett floats it a bit too much for me on those deep balls. While he's accurate with those floaters, I think that he is floating them a bit too much for my liking. It's just the ceiling there. I think that Pickett gives you a lot of things to be comfortable about as a franchise. I just don't know if he's ever going to be that guy who can take you to the next level. Just one last thing I saw here as well too. I thought that Pickett had a bit of a long throwing motion as well too. Obviously, I didn't think he was Tebow, but he didn't have that compactness. I think that all goes down to his lack of arm strength as well too. So again, I think he is a safe prospect. I just don't think that he has those tools to take your favorite NFL team or your fantasy team. If we're talking Superflex, probably a great QB too. But I don't think that I'd be reaching for him overly highly unless I'm punting quarterback in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, and Foreman, just to even piggyback on what you said, even when we saw him make throws in like a practice situation, it's still interesting to me how you can have that elongated motion. And I don't know if it's kind of like a weird hitch. And I'm curious if it has to do with the arms with his hand size, because it's like a dip and then he has to come up to I don't know. Of course, audio medium as I'm trying to work it out on this video with you guys and expecting people to understand what I'm saying. But I do find that interesting. Zach, let's talk through Kenny Pickett, man. What are you seeing in regards to things that we need to know about his game that aren't so great?
What you're talking about is that arm drag. You're getting your elbow out in front of your arm and then having to have everything catch up. I see what you're saying. I'm with you. Like if I was diagnosing him as a pitcher, we could work with that. But the NFL has shifted away from that statuesque pocket quarterback in favor of the newer mobile version, and that's not Pickett. He can pick up a few yards in a pinch, but there's not going to be a significant number of fantasy points coming from his legs. And even though Pickett moves the pocket pretty well laterally, he rarely steps up forward in it. So he doesn't, when you hear people talk about climbing the pocket, he doesn't really do that very well. And this creates 2 problems. Throws get longer the further back Pickett drops. And if you move to one side of the field, it ostensibly eliminates throwing back to the other side, effectively cutting Pickett's options in half. So because he doesn't step up in the pocket and leave himself the entire field, he kind of limits himself. Also, when Pickett rolls to his left, and Matt, I know you said that you like the way he threw on the move. When he rolls to his left, he struggles sometimes to reset his platform. And that causes issues with accuracy. And it's almost always moving to his left. And I think, again, it's that when he's moving, he doesn't close that front shoulder. And then all of a sudden you end up with a high throw and it's ugly. Pickett is probably a first-round pick in the upcoming 2022 NFL draft. He's good enough to win a starting job. He's probably good enough to hold it. And Kenny Pickett is a decent bet to be a solid QB2 in fantasy. Bon appetit.
Question mark? Oh, man, that's good. All right. Last QB on the night. And we'll say as well with Kenny Pickett, 6'3", 220. Pretty good size fellow there. Sam Howell is actually our final quarterback on the evening, 6'1", 220 out of North Carolina. And Sam Howell, you talk about an enigma at the quarterback position. We've gone through all these guys, and it's really interesting because he's the one player out of these four whose stock has actually fallen since last season. Everyone else has gotten stock up. Willis up, Corral up, Pickett way up. Sam Howell. You look at the numbers, you're not super excited because you see in each of his 3 seasons as the starter at UNC, we saw completions go down. We saw attempts go down. We saw the completion percentage go down, yards, touchdowns, all the production went down year over year. Obviously, we know last season in 2020, Sam Howell, when they were building the hype machine for his Heisman campaign that was supposed to be the 2021 season, he had De'Ami Brown. He had Daz Newsome. He had the running backs, Carter and Javonte Williams. Man, had a brain fart there. And obviously all of those guys left him for greener pastures. Yes, those greener pastures being money in the NFL to be able to continue their careers. And Sam Howell was doing his best MacGyver impression with chewing gum, paper clips, popsicle sticks to try to be able to help UNC throughout the season. But in this last year, 3,056 yards passing. We saw 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Again, the production was not something that we wanted in this last season. He didn't necessarily elevate to the heights that he had previously done. But Foreman, please tell me, the work in his last season there, was it enough for you to still be excited about a guy who many were thinking might be the best QB coming out this year just 1 year ago?
Yeah, I remember watching I remember him watching dual Trevor Lawrence back in his freshman season when he was at when Clemson, North Carolina played. I was like, wow, this kid's gonna be good. I think I'm getting some. If I can dip into my own self-deprecation here, I think I'm getting a lot of Christian Hackenberg vibes from Sam Howell a little bit here. Obviously, a lot more of a running threat than Mr. Hackenberg is and or was. But I think that's something that Sam improved on, and I think that was probably something he had to improve on was his running ability in 2021. He kind of reminds me of what Sean Payton wanted Taysom Hill to be. If I can make a bit of a comparison there, a guy who's a little bit inaccurate, he's a good athlete. I think there's enough from what we saw in 2019 and 2020 to have some hopes for Howell and hope that his production, hope that his drop in production was due to his lack of weapons. But I think there's enough to like there. He's got a good frame on him. Again, he's productive as a runner as well too. I probably think he might be the second most mobile, only behind Willis. I think him and Corral are close. He plays a little different style of running than Corral does. But there's some pieces there to how that I think the NFL are going to like. I think all 4 of these guys are going to go in the first round. I would be very surprised if they did not. But I think there's some things to like about Howell, and you're going to have to hope that you're finding what you saw in 2019 and 2020 as an NFL franchise to unlock what he was instead of what he has been.
Yeah, and just to be able to help reiterate the point that you're making regarding his rushing production, again, over his first 2 seasons as a freshman and sophomore as a starting quarterback, 25 games, he did not rush for over 181 yards in those 2 years. As a junior, 183 carries, 828 rushing yards, and 11 touchdowns on the ground to go with those 24 passing. So while the passing game wasn't the same over the last season, we saw his rushing tick way up. Zach, are you all the way up, Fat Joe style, on Sam Howell?
Look, no disrespect to Ty Chandler and Josh Downs, but it's really hard to be productive. LeBron James had joined together with 7 different all-star caliber teammates to win his 4 championships. Likewise, Larry Bird's 3 titles were facilitated by 7 other all-stars. Kobe, 6. Magic, 5. At the start of Sam Howell's career at Carolina, he was surrounded by NFL talent. You mentioned Daz Newsome, De'Ami Brown, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams. Life was good. Howell put up 3,600 yards passing as a freshman, followed that up by a sophomore season where it saw him complete 68% of his passes. 2021 was a different story, and it's the final chapter that seems to resonate most with evaluators. It's no secret that Howell struggled last year, but amidst that struggle, Howell grew. In his first 2 seasons, he was limited to under 2 yards a carry, resorting to running only out of desperation. But as a junior, with fewer weapons to rely on, Howell ran for over 800 yards, 4.5 yards a clip. This doesn't make Howell a vaunted Konami code quarterback, but it certainly is an intriguing new facet of his game. Howell does a very good job climbing the pocket, stepping through and past pressure to buy himself time. When he's forced to choose between throwing, scrambling, or throwing the ball away, Howell generally makes the right choice, which is something of a unique feature in this class. I think that he's one of the few that makes that decision to throw the ball away more often, and it's a good one. When and Howell's ability to see both sides of the field, I think, moving the pocket and resetting his platform to make accurate throws is generally consistent, although he's more prone to not getting set when he's rolling to his right. So if you put he and Pickett together, you'd have a really nice thing going.
Very well. Sam Howell, it's really interesting because I think he may be the one player in this group that showed you if you put him in an advantageous position, your offense can be something that's special, not just really good, but like special. Taking your offense that has really good players in it and then amplifying it to something that's legitimately special. And I don't mean to reiterate that point about special over and over again, but I just want to put into place kind of what he was as a junior and how excited, what he was as a sophomore, how excited we were. And when he didn't meet expectations, and it's really, really cool quote that I use a lot at work, and I pass this along to people. The good old Jalen Rose quote: "Happiness is a function of expectations." Again, not joy, but happiness. Talking about happiness here. The expectations were Sam Howell was going to come in and lead this offense to continued heights, even with all those guys lost, because he was a truck and not a trailer. He was one that carries the load, not is pulled by the load. And so when that didn't happen, I think people got really down. UNC only wins like 6 games on the season, and I think that left a really sour taste in people's mouths. But he wasn't the same player as he was as a sophomore. That's a good thing because we saw more from him, and his added rushing prowess, the toughness that he shows there, The anticipatory throws that he does make on occasion are things that I'm excited about, and I'm really hopeful that he gets put in a position at the next level to be paired with someone who can be creative with him, because I think that good things aren't in line for Sam Howell. Questions abound, including draft capital and many things that we don't currently see. Zach, are there things that fall out of favor for you in reference to Sam Howell?
As a newly minted mobile quarterback, I think Howell gets himself into trouble by trying to take more than is there. And he often gets lit up by defenders. In the words of the immortal John Resnick, why don't you slide? Taking big hits highlights another one of Howell's flaws. He's often careless with ball security, fumbling 20 times in 37 career games. Although Howell is fairly accurate as a passer, he does have a bad habit of not closing his front shoulder, especially on throws to his right. This leads to the ball sailing on him, and that is a dangerous game at the next level. I think it's easy to forget how good Sam Howell has been over his career in light of what we've seen recently. We get this real, like, what have you done for me lately? The McDonaldization of society, where we want it fast, we want it now, and we only remember that last Big Mac we had. Regardless of how he's done it, though, Howell has been a playmaker for Carolina over the past 3 years. He did it with his arm in his first couple. Last year, he did it with his legs. And I think he has potential to do it again in the NFL. And you mentioned draft capital, and you mentioned that Howell may fall. Where are the good teams in relation to the NFL draft? They're in the back half. So you could see him end up pulling the Mac Jones Houdini act and landing on a team that can actually utilize his ability to success.
That'd be something to see there. Foreman, talk to us. Close us out on these quarterbacks here with the life and times of Sam Howell's better days.
Yeah, I think some things I saw that I didn't like was probably what Zach was alluding to as well too. Inconsistent deep ball accuracy, and I think he did something similar with Pickett because he wasn't stepping up in his throws, and I think that was leading into him sailing the ball a bit. Obviously, with both of those things, obviously Zach is going to be more nuanced with the arm angles and everything with what's going on there, as with Zach's background on the rubber there. But I think that's something that was one of Howell's downfalls over the past year. I think if I could pick out a spot for Howell, I would love to see him in Washington because they have a bit of a good offensive base there, and he would get to link up with Brown again. And I think I don't know if they're a quarterback away, but they have some interesting pieces there as well. I don't see any of these guys dropping out of the first round. I think in today's NFL, I think we have more of a chance of seeing the likes of one of the lesser tier quarterbacks popping into the end of the first round to get that fifth year of control rather than somebody falling out of the first round, especially with the rookie wage scale as well too.
Where else are we looking at quarterbacks landing? I mean, like you mentioned Washington, Denver is one, Pittsburgh is one. Like, where else are we looking at potential quarterback landing spots?
I think you're curious about what's happening in Indianapolis.
Yep.
Regarding the thing about Carson Wentz. You're curious about what may be happening in Vegas with rumors of them wanting to part ways with Carr. That could be interesting. So, a couple of dark horse spots. Foreman, any other spots that you can think of off the top?
Yeah, I think someone who's sitting there pretty solidly at the end of the first and the beginning of the second round is the Detroit Lions. Obviously with Goff there, you probably get another year of Goff there just because of the salary cap commitments there. But I think that's a good spot. We have some interesting pieces there in Detroit as well too with the Sun God and Josh Reynolds as well too came on late and with Hawkinson and Swift and some other interesting pieces there as well too. I think Detroit's probably in the market for a quarterback, either with that pick they got from the Rams at 32, just to remind you there, JMic. And they're picking 34th as well there too. So if they're seeing a run there, one of these guys is falling, they could probably use both of those picks and maybe get up into the late teens or the early 20s.
All right, quarterback is in the books for us. This hootenanny, or at least this first pass at quarterback. I'm sorry, Zach. Let me just go off real quick. So, do we want to mark tape and then do tight ends another time, or do we want to power through? Because I'm just curious, because we got 3 to 4 quarterbacks in that, well, probably about 40 minutes by the time we actually.
I was gonna say I can edit that down, but I mean it's up to you guys. If you're out, I mean it's 11. If you're done, then that's fine. If you want to,
no, I'm good to keep going. I just wanted to. Check.
I'm not. It doesn't matter to me either. I just don't want to have 5 tight ends to talk about. I don't want to just get into the hour 45, 2 hour mark. But I'm cool with whatever y'all want to do. I'm cool with wrapping it up and maybe we could maybe do something like a midweek kind of thing, just to throw it out there. Or, like I said, I'm cool with whatever.
Okay. Call's yours to make, Zach.
Like I said, it's up to you guys. If like I got stuff, we can roll it quick or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, let's run it.
Yeah.
All right. Pick back up in 3. All right. Quarterbacks in the books. Let's get to these rankings of these quarterbacks, because a hootenanny ain't a hootenanny without these here rankings from the trio here. So, guys, when we're looking at these quarterbacks, where do you have them slated with film grades? Again, if you may be new to the program, these are just our grades based on film. There's much in the process to be done. The Senior Bowl's in the books, which is a nice piece. There's still more with the combine, with pro days, and the actual draft itself. So film grades galore. I'll actually kick us off for once. When we're looking at the quarterbacks from a film grade perspective, I do have Matt Corral as my one. He graded the highest. I will say that he is not my favorite of the group. And oddly enough, he's not one that even flexes what I think is any elite or incredibly special skill of the group. But from an overall standpoint, Corral did get my highest grade of the group. However, also in the same tier as Corral is Willis. And I still have questions regarding Willis from a standpoint of playing at a smaller school, all those different things, but just taking into account who he is as a rusher, for me, weighed pretty heavy in reference to his grade. I've got Sam Howell at 3, and Sam Howell is just a cut below Willis, and I've got Pickett tiered down below all of that. And we see lots of nice things from Pickett, but I'm also not exactly excited for Pickett. Not to say that he can't be good or can't flash a lot of upside, but that's how I have it currently ranked. Corral, Willis, Howell, Pickett. People are not going to be thrilled with that list, but that's okay. Zach, you want to go ahead next and tell us your rankings?
Yeah, so if I'm going strictly off of film grades, I've got Sam Howell as my top graded quarterback. I got Pickett at 2, Corral at 3, and Willis at 4, with the caveat that we're playing fantasy football. So when Malik Willis is drafted and is named a starting quarterback, he's going to be the number 1 because he will score the most fantasy points. And so my film grades don't necessarily align with the way I would rank them. So ranking them, and I had this conversation with Kyle when Lamar Jackson came out, because I was looking at, I grade, I don't weight anything with my film grades any higher than anything else. So it just spits out, a number. So Willis graded out lower, but his ability with his legs is such so far and above everybody else. It'll be Willis, Howell, Pickett, Corral.
Very good. All right, Foreman. What about you? Your ranking, sir?
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it from on Zach's second list. I have mine as Willis, Pickett, Howell, Corral. I'm just concerned about Corral's upside. Again, that's with these guys. I'm just concerned with upside selections here, and I think that's interesting saying that with having Pickett as my 2. But I feel like his floor is probably the highest of the 4 guys. Where I think that he's where I said that he's a double pick, where he's not going to hurt you, but he's going to be that. I think he's that. When you were talking about Mac Jones, I think that's a great comparison to him. Whereas he's not gonna lose you a lot of games, but he's probably not gonna win you a whole lot of games either. More in that game manager mode, maybe not a game manager as like a Brad Johnson kind of thing, but a game manager plus where he's got some tools where he can make some plays for you. And with how the rushing upside really helped him out with there. It's just with Corral, I think his landing spot's going to be interesting, and I think that I don't see him as a day 1 starter, a week 1 starter in the NFL.
I'll be really curious to see who, if any of these guys are starters out the gate. That'll be a really interesting thing to be able to watch specifically with landing spots. All right, that's quarterback. Let's jump into these tight ends real quick, and we're going to start at the top here with DLF's number 1 ranked tight end, Trey McBride out of Colorado State. We previously mentioned, I know at least in our back channels, regarding Trey McBride against Pierre Strong and being able to see him in that game and play well. And obviously, Trey McBride, a guy who has been able to get it done in this last season, again, who outpaced all of his production in terms of catches in his senior season than he had in his first 3 years at Colorado State. He is 6'4", 250 pounds. This last season gave you 90 catches, 1,121 yards, and only 1 touchdown? Is that a typo? What? So Trey McBride, obviously super producer, catching maven. Zach, talk to us about Trey McBreezy.
Do you have a moment to talk about USAA automobile insurance?
USAA.
No, fantastic. Let's get down to business. We'll make Rob Gronkowski irrelevant, shall we? Trey McBride is the type of player you notice even when you're not intending to watch him. Whether he's pancake blocking his assigned defender, setting the edge to spring his running back, or McBride is sprinting behind the line of scrimmage to get in position to make a wham block, he does it well. And sure, there are no fantasy points for blocking, but it's a great way to endear yourself to the guys who make playing time decisions. As far as fantasy is concerned, McBride has exceptional hands, naturally catching the ball away from his frame. He's adept at making adjustments to poorly thrown balls and also at absorbing contact to make plays in traffic. He's deadly on a slant and on seam routes. He's able to track the ball without breaking stride and tack on extra yards with physical running style post-catch.
Very good. The 2021 Mackey Award winner. Foreman, how are you feeling about Trey McBride?
Yeah, what Zach said. I think that he does a great job with positional versatility. You can see him with this, which is interesting with the one, only the one tight end. I mean, the one touchdown is that he was frequently lined up on a corner outside, and he did a great job using his size and leverage against those smaller corners. I was very surprised about how fluid he was as for kind of a bigger guy. The guy loves to block, and I think he's going to be someone who we're going to see get on the field early because of that fact. And again, as we talked about early, if you're on the field, you're going to score points.
All right, Foreman, I'm going to kick it right back to you. In reference to Trey McBride and areas of opportunity for his game, what are some things that you'd like to see improve there?
I think he does a lot of things well. I didn't have a whole lot of concerns with McBride. The biggest thing was that he just wasn't that fast. I mean, if that's the biggest concern I have about you as a tight end, I think that's I mean, he's 6'4", 250 pounds. I mean, I don't know how fast he probably is going to be maybe a 4.7.5, 4.8.5 kind of guy. But I think that's just fine. I don't think you need to be. Not every tight end is going to be Kyle Pitts. I think if you're expecting that, you're going to be disappointed.
Zach, are you going to be disappointed with Trey McBride's upside if we're not seeing the touchdowns happen at the college level? How are we going to expect this in the pros?
Well, I think it might seem like this has been a glowing account of McBride. There are definitely some warts, though. Matt mentioned this. He appears to be fast enough for his current level of competition, but the NFL defenders are going to be a huge step up in both speed and strength comparatively. Similar concerns crop up when McBride lost an inch and about 15 pounds at his Senior Bowl weigh-in. When coupled with his tendency to run very rounded routes against man coverage, struggling to separate sometimes, McBride does have a share of risks. He's not Gronk. He's not Kelsey. He's not Pitts, Kittle, or Andrews. But Trey McBride is the best tight end in what's a very deep position in the 2022 class. And he hasn't oversaturated the annoying TV commercial market yet.
Spoiler alert. Sheesh. Best tight end in the class. Come on, Zach. Gosh. We got people who are trying to keep listening throughout the entire episode. All right. Right back to the tight end well here. Heading down to the good folks at College Station. Jalen Wydermyer, Texas A&M, listed at about 6'5", 255 pounds. And we've seen some good players down there at Texas A&M. Had some inconsistent quarterback play over the last several years. Jimbo Fisher not really getting the most out of those offensive players down there. However, someone that people have been excited about for a little while, Jalen Wydermyer, pretty consistent over the last few years. 32 catches as a freshman, 46 catches as a sophomore. Took a little bit of a step back, 40 catches in this junior season for 515 yards, 4 touchdowns on the year. Wydermyer, someone people have been excited about for a while, giving you great size, looks like pretty good mobility. Zach, take us through Jalen Wydermyer.
What a weird watch Jalen Wydermyer was. Not since Gregor Samsa has there been a more pronounced transformation than the one that took place in College Station over the past few years. Wydermyer went from a blocking tight end who was unable to block to one of the best prospects in the 2022 class. He began his career by misusing leverage, releasing blocks early, overcommitting and ending up on the wrong side of his blocking assignments, and even throwing a linebacker directly into his own quarterback at least once. But 2021, he came back revamped, and Wydermyer became a catalyst in the run game, consistently setting the edge to spring his backs and even developing as an assassin using wham blocks. Wydermyer's metamorphosis carried over into the passing game too. He became a very good route runner for a tight end, allowing him to show off his steady hands. Wydermyer shines brightest once he's caught the ball, adding yards after the catch on slip screens and seam routes alike.
Very good. Foreman, let's keep it going. Wydermyer, go.
Yeah, I think Wydermyer is going to be used well in the red zone. I think, again, what Zach said, I think his best ability could be his yards after catch ability. He holds his blocks well to help with those running backs. He's got some soft hands as well too. I did see a drop or two, but I mean, no one's gonna be Larry Fitzgerald. You're not gonna catch 100% of your balls. And he can be a decent lead blocker as too well when called upon in the run game.
Would you all be surprised if Wydermyer was a day one starter for an NFL team at tight end?
I would have been early in his, like, he literally, like, when I started watching his tape, I was like, I need to go back and bump Isaiah Spiller up because Wydermyer is killing Isaiah Spiller. Like half of the times where Spiller's caught in the backfield, it was because Wydermyer missed a block. This past year, It was incredible. And I don't have very much negative to say about him in 2021, which is weird. Well, actually, I guess the second half of 2021. It was just wild. So I think he can play. I mean, we're not going to be excited about tight ends, rookie tight ends, especially. I know everyone got the Kyle Pitts fever last year, but I don't think he's going to be a huge producer. I don't think he's going to ever be one of those top 5 guys. But he's fine to throw a dart at in late second, early third. Like, I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I live by the motto: if I don't have one of the top guys at tight end, I'm probably just picking a guy, because the difference between 5 and 6 is probably about the difference between that you're going to see between 6 and 18. So there's just a lot of who cares at tight end.
Always,
even a tight end premium, you're just widening the gap.
The big fallacy is tight end premium. There are only 5 or 6 guys a year that have 100 catches. Well, there's your premium. Those are the guys that it's helping. Everybody else just shrug.
Yeah. Yeah. The only real negative I saw Wydermyer is that he can get beat with a speed rush, but that's about it.
Gotcha. Zach, anything you want to add there in terms of opportunities?
That was pretty much what I got on Jalen Wydermyer. Like, the ability to assess your weaknesses and improve upon them is impressive to me, and that's something I look for in all of these prospects. Is, being able to continually improve year to year, and I think you saw Jalen Wydermyer do that, which speaks volumes to him, and I think it bodes well for the future for him.
Yeah. All right, moving on to tight end 3 on the evening. One Charlie Kolar out of Iowa State. Yes, he had to spend 4 years enduring the Brock Purdy reign at quarterback down there for the Cyclones. And listen, giving you ideal size, at least in theory, 6'6", 260. And then this final season, he's been someone who actually has been garnering targets for the Cyclones over the last few years. 51 catches as a sophomore, 44 as a junior, and then turning around in the senior season, his best yet, 62 catches, 756 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Listen, Charlie Kolar's been one of those guys that I've had eyes on for a while, just because it gives you that ideal size. And again, if you're going to be someone that's going to be productive with Brock Purdy throwing you the ball, that deserves a Medal of Honor in itself. We'll start with you, Foreman. What do you have in reference to things that you're excited about regarding Charlie Kolar? He's
average at a lot of things. He's got good size.
Ringing endorsement.
Yeah, he's just average. I mean, he's good, not great in the run game. He uses his size to his advantage, especially in the red zone. He's got a little bit of wiggle in the yards after catch ability, and he's got enough athleticism. I mean, he's just a guy, especially when I felt like he was just okay at everything. Nothing was screaming off the page where it's like, even where he might be a dart throw kind of guy, he's the kind of person who is going to be a better NFL player than a fantasy asset. And that's fine. I mean, a lot of guys make their hay on that, and that's just what their job is. But we have to use this from the fantasy lens, and I think that he's probably going to be a better NFL prospect than a fantasy prospect.
I've got a much more ringing endorsement of Charlie Kolar. I think Charlie Kolar could be the greatest tight end to come out of Iowa State since Hakeem Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really, like, he's pretty good with angles. His slant route is decent. That's where you're seeing a lot of those receptions are on that slant route. He can play in line, can play split out wide. He's got very good feet on the sideline. One of the few tight ends that I watched that was pretty consistently getting both feet down, which is weird for a tight end to see that nimbleness on the sideline. Got the toe tap. But like you said, Matt, he is pretty average. He made me appreciate Breece Hall watching Kolar tape, because you saw a lot of Breece Hall. maybe I may be too low on Hall, like too low on Hall, and he's 1.
One day we're gonna look back at the Sundance Festival film that's gonna win so many awards. It's Just Enough, the Charlie Kolar story. I'm pretty excited. Pretty excited for that one.
Did Charlie Kolar win the Mackey Award one year?
Oh, good question.
Like the Principal Mackey, like South Park.
Yeah. Drugs by him, guy.
That would be pretty crazy if he did. No, I'm not seeing that he did. And if he did, then I'm just missing it in my notes here.
Because I remember that I couldn't remember who won in 2019 because I remember that Pitts and Freiermuth both got screwed and somebody that won should not have won. I'm going to look it up real quick, but go ahead and talk because it bugged me who it was.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Now I feel like I have to find it. Anywho, it was actually so Trey McBride was 2021. Kyle Pitts won it in 2020. The year before that was Harrison Bryant.
Harrison Bryant, that's who it was.
Okay.
Yeah, Freiermuth was the semifinalist, and Pitts. I don't even know if Pitts was I don't think either of them were even a finalist that year, and they both obviously had good seasons as well, but. We don't need to talk about the 2019 Mackey Award because it's not what we're here to do.
Relevance, pertinence, we're here.
No, you could say us getting off topic is highly likely.
Ooh.
Speaking of, Isaiah Likely, tight end out of Coastal Carolina, 6'4", 240, also a Senior Bowl participant. And we saw him have his best season yet there in the Sun Belt for a very fun Coastal Carolina offense. If you haven't seen Coastal Carolina play, I would encourage you to be able to get eyes on them. That's a fun team. Shout out to Grayson McCall. Anyway, 59 catches, 912 yards. 12 touchdowns. Ooh, buddy. Production, very fun offense. Player who can give you a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of fun. Zach, go for it regarding Isaiah Likely and his likelihood of stealing your heart this draft season.
Are there going to be a ton of horrible puns in 2022 tight end articles? Presumably. Will everyone think that they've made an original, witty play on a certain Coastal Carolina standout's name? In all probability. Will I stoop to that level of lowbrow humor pandering to the lowest common denominator of comedic currency? Nah, Isaiah Likely deserves better. When a tight end slips over the top of his own defense for a 99-yard touchdown catch, that's mildly interesting. When Isaiah Likely continuously beats defenders on double moves, slants, and quick out routes, even extricating himself from press coverage, it's time to take notice. Although Likely's mostly running a traditional tight end tree, he runs those routes like a wide receiver. He can intimidate defenders with his long speed, whether he's lined up split wide, inline, or as an H-back. Likely feels a bit undersized, but that doesn't stop him from getting out and lead blocking for a running back. Likely is especially effective as a second-level blocker.
Very good. Foreman, let's keep it going. How likely are you on Isaiah? No, I need to stop.
I think he's interesting. I think he's interesting from a receiving perspective. I think he's probably the best receiver of these tight ends. I don't think that he's 6'4". I don't know what the Senior Bowl measurement had him. I'd be surprised if he was 6'4" as he was listed. No, but the 99-yard, you don't see a lot of tight ends get 99-yard touchdown passes very often. Agreeing with Zach said, he's definitely your prototypical move tight end H-back kind of role. He's a smooth route runner. He's great at blocking out in space as well. He's obviously at the yard after catch ability. Sorry, Brent, lost my train of thought there. But yeah, I think Likely is definitely the best receiving tight end. He's definitely the best receiving tight end in this class. For some negatives here, the guy he's not going to be inline blocker. He's bad. I mean, he's bad. They were running to the opposite side of him when they were running the ball. He just seemed like he was lost some of the times. And I think that's going to be definitely one of the drawbacks of him moving forward is he going to be able to be on the field in those in-between situations? But if he can stay on the field stay on the field for passing situations, then I'm all for it. Just worried about his immediate impact. Obviously, he's a tight end, so we're worried about everyone's immediate impact. But I'm worrying about his ability to stay on the field, especially when he's not playing against the what conference is what is that? What are they in? All the AAC? Are they in the Sun Belt? Yeah. I mean, if he's having a problem blocking Sun Belt level competition, how does that bode for him in the NFL?
And I think one of the things, because it's fun to watch Isaiah Likely just play football. He's an enjoyable watch. I think one of the things, and I'm curious because I was trying to find information regarding where he weighed in with the Senior Bowl.
6'4", 241.
So that makes me very happy. Hands. Yeah. And that makes me happy for this reason. I threw out this tweet last year when we were doing our film work regarding one Brevin Jordan. And since 2012, here's the group of tight ends listed below 6'4" with a top 5 position finish, PPR, weeks 1 through 16. Vernon Davis in 2013, Delanie Walker, 2015 through 2017. Delanie Walker was a different breed of awesome. Jordan Reed in 2015, and Evan Ingram in 2017.
Did you say under 6'4"?
Listed below 6'4".
So 6'3" and an eighth for Trey McBride is not great.
I'm not saying it's not great. I'm just going off of the data since 2012. But with him coming in at 6'4", I know that I am highly likely to be excited about Isaiah come draft time. He's probably my favorite watch of this group. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Last tight end on the evening, near and dear to us here at the DFPN because he is near and dear to the heart of one Sal Leto. Sal, what up? We've got Jeremy Ruckert, tight end out of Ohio State. Excuse me. Let me rephrase that. Tight end out of the Ohio State University. As Foreman shakes his head ferociously at me. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to show respect here. I don't want anybody to be upset.
A Pitt Panther fan over there shaking his head. I see him.
It's the Pennsylvania State University, but I'm sorry, we're not some sort of egotistical nut jobs. We have to try and get it trademarked to put the. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. We get it. You're better at football than we are.
Can I give you my entire Jeremy Ruckert write-up is Sal, I love you. Like, that's it. Like, he's good. The NFL is going to love Ruckert. I'm not going to love him for fantasy. He's such a willing blocker that's what they're going to have him do. Like he sticks his nose in it, but I am cheering for him. I am going to be excited. I just think teams are going to leverage his blocking and not use him as a weapon.
6'5", 252. How big a boy are you? My goodness. That's the thing, though. The production wasn't there that we would have hoped for over his time at Ohio State. Tons of NFL talent, obviously, that he's played with every single season. 26 catches, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, and what is his best season as a senior at Ohio State. Foreman, any words on Ruckert before we put a period on the show here?
I liked him more than Zach did.
No, he's good. He's really good.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't like. I think the things he does well, the NFL is going to be really excited about, and they're going to have him do that.
Yeah, I think his ability, again, with the same thing with Kolar, is just are they going to leverage his blocking ability, and that's just where he's going to get pigeonholed as. I did think that he had some nice things as a receiver. He's got some soft hands. He's quick enough to beat linebackers. And he was used well enough in the red zone at Ohio State as well too. He was getting lost in the shuffle and seemingly open several times in the red zone where he was just, I don't know how you lose a guy who's 6'5", but
he's a really sneaky route runner.
Yeah,
he is.
Yeah, I was impressed. I was hoping to knock Sal down a peg or two, but not going to.
Very good. All right, tight ends in the books. At least this first group. See about a second pass if there is one here for us. But let's talk about these quick rankings, fellas. Tight end, how do you got them? Zach, you can go ahead and go first here.
McBride, Likely, Wydermyer, Kolar, and Ruckert.
All right. Foreman?
I have it McBride. I have it Wydermyer, Likely, Ruckert, Kolar. But Kolar's a couple tiers below the other ones.
Yeah, I see Kolar and Ruckert in a similar tier, but I'm not as high on them as my current tight end one, Isaiah Likely.
Oh, how likely is that?
I like Likely. I really do.
Do you like Likely him?
Listen, I like Likely him. I'll say Likely, McBride, Wydermyer, and it's not some giant gap between those guys. I think that they're all fine players. Do I see any of them being difference makers? Nope. However, could they sneak around and fool around and get tight end viability that helps my team? Maybe.
I will be really interested to see Likely combine speed, that sort of thing.
Agreed.
Because he could be real fun as an athletic pass catching tight end.
Yes, I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. Yep. All right, fellas, that's it. Quarterbacks, tight ends. Zach, do you want to set the stage for next week and what we've got planned from there?
Yeah, next week we're going to do a catch-all show, the guys we missed. I've already sent out a tweet. If you haven't seen that, I will retweet it at some point. But this is the audience participation portion of the show. If you have somebody that we missed, if you've been listening along, we've done the top 12 running backs, the top 12 receivers. I don't want to talk about another quarterback. I don't want to talk about another tight end. But if you've got a receiver, if you've got a running back that you want to throw at us, man, let's do that, and we'll give back. We'll help us help you with this rookie catch-all show to end the hootenanny.
Very good. Love to see it. Man, it's again, talk about how time flies when you have fun. Here we are 5 weeks in. Here we are 90 minutes in, and I just very much enjoy the continued process, and I love the fact that we're able to continue to dive in and have some fun and have some good dialogue and grow with each other. So this is exciting stuff. Foreman, any last words on the evening before we call it a show?
Looking forward to seeing who the listeners want us to listen to, because I think there's probably 30 guys, maybe not 30, maybe 20 guys that I think would be viable. I think that while there's not a lot of top end talent here, I think that you could find you're going to be able to find some interesting pieces of guys that you might specifically like in the third and fourth rounds of your fantasy drafts.
That's incredibly well said, because I think that there are some players, especially in these second and third rounds of our rookie drafts, that we probably haven't discussed yet that are actually pretty exciting. And again, I feel like every year we see players kind of rise from out of nowhere to bring fantasy significance. So you want to definitely be on those players, leveraging that Zach Reed strategy of trading future later picks for moving up to the current round where you have a target. So I'm excited for it. But yep, on Twitter at JMic. Foreman's on Twitter at Fat Mormon. Zach's on Twitter at Tacit Assassin 13. Zach, close it out. Do your thing, man.
Hey, we are the DFPN at work and the Dynasty Dummies on that at work. It's the only at work in town, which makes it the best one, I suppose. And judging by the guys we got rolling with us, you should be following them. If you're not by now, I don't know what you're doing. You know, if you make it to the end of our show every week and aren't following the gentleman with the at work, Sal, Kevin, Steve, Matt, Russ, Joe. Kyle's still there. I see him kicking around the chat every now and then. And JMic, like it's a great group. If you are still here, we appreciate you rolling with us. We appreciate you listening to this extended episode of the Hootenanny. We hope you come back next week. This has been the Dynasty Dummies. Peace. That was a super weak piece.